Going towards Larssen in the mid lane. Sylas is the current hover for Origen. Of course, can be in the jungle. We have seen it played mid as well. So a few different options here for Origen as they try and look towards their second pick.
Well, I talk about Azir often being an answer to Corki, but Sylas is usually the more common one, given that you're able to get push early on into the game. And because if you do steal away the Corki ultimate, it actually synergizes very nicely with your passive as well. So I quite like the Sylas pick. I think it's also quite flexible, but of course, because they locked in the Gragas jungle, it does give an indication that it should be going into the mid lane, into the Corki. So if Rogue choose to swap out that Corki into a different lane, then they could look to get a couple of counter picks up against the likes of Nukeduck.
Something we have seen in the past is Gragas support, so perhaps a tiny bit of flexibility left for Origen, but the expectation is that the Gragas goes into the jungle role. Qiyana locked, and then immediately Rakan as well here for Rogue. So getting some strong AD assassins and then a strong teamfight tool in the Rakan.
So Rogue have a very powerful meta comp. Rakan is considered the strongest support on the current meta. Qiyana, very powerful early game jungler. I'm not going to say that it's the same as Olaf, but if you're a jungler that likes to make early game plays, which we know Inspired often is when he's on the likes of Olaf, Qiyana is definitely a champion that fits into that style. And of course you have Corki, flexibility in terms of where it goes in the draft, strong scaling, powerful lane presence. All around, Rogue have a pretty solid first half, and a lot of Origen's draft has been answers to it. So the Sylas is an answer to the Corki, the Nautilus is an answer to the Rakan, and the Gragas just acts as a bit of disengage, but also provides some early pick and additional AP and wave clear. So Origen right now not showcasing too much, just very much responding to a lot of what Rogue is trying to draft and trying to deny it as much as possible.
Origen reacting to a pocket pick from Finn as well by removing the Kled from the pool. Gangplank taken away by Rogue, and we'll see where Origen decides to go for their final ban. Already see a couple of AD carries taken out with the Draven and the Xayah. Wonder if Origen want to pinch that pool even more, or perhaps look towards a jungler, implying that the Qiyana could be going mid.
I mean, well, the Qiyana could also go top. We did see Finn play it up against Schalke, and he got that massive ultimate up against them to win the fight. So it's definitely possible to go up towards that top side of the map. That's one of the greatest powers that this composition has right now for Rogue, because there's a lot of flexibility in it. I think Origen right now want to just lock in an AD carry. Kaisa is something that I'm looking at that I think would be pretty safe. You could easily play into the bot lane. Synergizes quite nicely, I think, with the Nautilus. And I think is just considered right now one of the safe blind picks that I think a lot of the EU teams have adopted, surprisingly, from the LPL meta. Something that over in the LPL they love to play a lot of. A lot of Kaisa, a lot of Lucian, a lot of Draven.
Good prediction on the Kaisa pick there. Vedius is locked in for Origen. Will be the first time we see Patrik play it if he takes it. Have seen Kaisa mid in some other regions, so could of course go into Nukeduck's hands, but with the Sylas.
Please not again.
Against it.
Please not again. Okay, so we're actually going to see the Azir locked in. This will be a Corki bot lane. We talked about how it does have flexibility power, and Rogue are going to take advantage of that. So they're going to be running the Azir into what they expect to be a Sylas mid lane. They have a range advantage. It's going to be a lot harder for Sylas to gain pressure in the early game. And so quick pivot coming out from Rogue. We'll see as we get into the game how well it works out for them, because they have a lot of scaling power with the Corki and the Azir. Early game power, a lot of it comes from the Aatrox and the Qiyana. This duo is what Rogue need to be playing around in the early game. So Finn will be the main guy that I look at to see how well they do that. Meanwhile, Origen, they have a pretty strong 2v2 in the top side of the map themselves, but I don't know if Gragas will have the damage or utility enough to compensate the early burst that the likes of a Qiyana can provide. So we'll keep an eye on the junglers in the early game. We'll see what they look to do. Meanwhile, a decent amount of scaling from the side of Origen. Similar can be said for Rogue. Very similar team comps, where I expect top side of the map to be the main focus. Bot side to be much more about scaling and a couple of back and forths. There is room for junglers to look to play, but especially in the early game, I feel like the top lane is going to be the name of the game. And then I expect a lot more team fighting in the mid game. Less compared to what we saw with Fnatic, where we got to like 30, 35, 40 minutes. I think this one is going to ignite and be a little bit more fiery around the 20 to 25 minute mark.
Let's see if they live up towards your expectations. A huge match for both these teams. Origen are spring split finalists on the verge of not even making it to playoffs. A win here would lock them in, and I'm sure they want to have it done and dusted before the final day of play. Rogue would be locked out if they lose here, as they have struggled to pick up wins in the second half of the split. We'll see just who comes out on top as we get towards Summoner's Rift. Both teams are here for a fight. Once more into the breach we go as the teams take to the Rift, and we'll see if any level 1 action happens. Wanted to track the junglers early on. I don't think there'll be too much going on as the line of scrimmage is set up from both of these teams. Just warding the river, or using themselves as human wards in the river. Pretty sure they're saying, let's go Vedi.
I'm pretty sure they're shouting support for Origen, given that they're in Origen jerseys. But I appreciate that you're always here to support me, Medic.
You need it.
Let's have a look in terms of the early game. As you rightly said, it looks like nothing too crazy coming out. Any crazy stuff in the runes? Looks like everything is pretty standard. Kleptomancy for Woolite. That's a little surprising. Usually in 2v2 matchups, the Kleptomancy is a lot harder to proc, unless you're willing to try and get into the face of Nautilus. But then, of course, if you get in the face of Nautilus, there's a risk that Nautilus does Nautilus things. So you've always got to be careful of that. We'll see how well he can do in terms of proccing that and collecting that. You'll also notice the Electrocute on the Azir. Against melee matchups, I think it offers a lot of additional burst and offers a lot more power in the mid-game as well. So quite like that pickup. Outside of that, nothing too crazy in terms of runes. Meanwhile, in terms of jungle start, it looks like the Gragas will be starting on the bot side of the map. This does indicate that he's looking to play up towards top side early. Now, what you'll often see from Qiyana specifically is a full clear towards the bottom side of her jungle, around the red side, because it's the safest clear, and it will get you level 3. You can then look to back, or you can look for a very early gank. Whereas Kold, he's going to be looking for blue into wolves. He may then go immediately into red and then wolves, or he could choose to do his Krugs. He has a couple of options, but his whole game plan is to basically be around the top side of the map, ready for any potential early game plays, or to set up an early game play of his own.
Seen Larssen already trading, Finn and Larssen and Nukeduck trading in the mid lane. Alphari's put a little bit of damage down onto Finn, who's got a Doran shield. Both top laners actually going for the shield. No corrupting potions, as neither of them really use any mana. And Alphari with the level 2 will get the early push in the lane, but Finn should just be able to clear this one out as it hits towards his tower. May lose out on a few of those CS. Alphari will take the early advantage.
So you can now see Alphari putting a ward down into the river. Like, Origen very aware of what the game plan from Rogue is. They are super conscientious of an early game gank coming out from Inspired towards the top side of the map. They have this early vision here, immediately spots out Inspired. Great awareness from Origen. Kold will be able to walk away with his red buff, safe and sound, and Nukeduck isn't going to get ganked either. And now Inspired realizes that he's sitting on top of a ward. So props to Origen, really good awareness, really good read, very clearly coming into the game and saying, this is what they want to do, let's make sure they can't do it.
Still trading in the top lane, but Kold and Origen reading the enemy jungle like a book, as you said, Vedius, even denying that second ward play. Inspired's going to jump across here. Alphari will be aware the top side is the option for Inspired. Meanwhile, in the bottom lane, a little bit of trading happens, but nothing too monumental. Kold will get the first scuttle crab of the game and can path down towards bottom to take the second if he so desires. Might want to stay around top just to make sure that that threat of a kill on Alphari doesn't come to a reality.
So Inspired just going to utilize this time now to clear out the top side of his jungle. Kold also going to do the Krugs, and then likely go back to base, pick up his Predator boots, but Inspired actually going to come through the lane. I think it's very difficult to set up a dive this early on, especially against the likes of a Renekton, so I agree with Inspired, not going to take any gambles there. And again, he's just staying outside of the range of this ward, so he's not going to get spotted out.
It is a lot of Inspired's time that he's spent trying to get in towards the top lane, trying to look for these ganks. You can see it in the CS differential between the junglers. Alphari picked up 2 extra camps over Inspired so far. He's now gone, Kold has picked up 2 extra camps. He's now gone back, got the Predator boots early, as you expect on a Gragas, and can look to perhaps have that first impactful gank of the game. The question is what Inspired and Rogue are going to do to react to that, because they'll know Kold has that early advantage and can use it somewhere on the map.
Looks like that his eyes are set on the bot lane. Woolite and Vander do still have all their summon spells up. Hook lands.
Looking for the Predator boots coming in. Vander and Woolite just able to be safe, but Mithy unable to lock someone from Rogue down long enough to get anything out of it, and Kold will walk over a ward, but will get the second scuttle crab of the game.
Looks like that he's just going to secure that on the bot side of the map right now. Alphari feels relatively safe up towards top with that Scuttle Crab secure. And as you rightly identified, the second one of the game. Right now, the bot lane feels pretty safe to push up, and they're likely going to be looking for a base relatively soon because they have the jungle support. Meanwhile, Inspired is a little bit behind Kold in terms of jungle clear, but once he clears out those... Oh, he's not going to go for Croaks. He's actually going to go for Raptors instead. And remember that Nukeduck is pushing in that mid wave. Kold doesn't feel confident enough to go for the fight, though.
Yeah, it's a little bit dangerous going for a fight against the Qiyana even early on. He packs a mighty punch. Both teleports were used in the mid lane by the mid laners just to get back into the lane, and you can see just that little bit of a lead for Larssen. As expected in the Azir into Sylas matchup, you have the extra range early on, so you're going to be able to harass the Sylas, and with the electrocute that you picked up on earlier, that harass sticks even more. And the way that this early game's gone and the way that Origen have tracked the enemy jungle is kind of indicative of the way they played this split. They tend to like just to keep the early game a little bit slower, keep track of the enemy jungler and stop them from doing anything rather than making too many proactive plays themselves.
Well, I think it's more to do with the nature of the comp. I would argue that Kold, especially last week, actually had some pretty active early games. Yeah. But right now they're setting up a play in mid. Let's see if they landed onto Larssen.
The steal on the ultimate. Kold coming in, Mithy here as well, but Inspired, Vander and Larssen are there for the fight. Double teleports coming out as both the bot laners join the party, and really it's just a handshake in the mid lane as everyone backs away.
So I'm actually having a look at who lost what in that exchange, because we can see a couple flashes burnt. Larssen lost his, but in exchange for both Nukeducks and Kold. The bot wave is the biggest loss here for Rogue, given that you can see a slow push started, which means all this farm that Woolite and Vander wanted to grab has now gone to no one. But all this farm that's slowly been building up will be picked up by Patrik and Mithy, as Alphari and Finn just look for a bit of a back and forth trade. And again, Inspired hanging around the top side of the map in the event of a potential dive because he saw that wave stacking. Like, it's things like that where you remember that Inspired is a rookie jungler, right? He's very young, only 17 years old, and like, his awareness of what he needs to do in the early game is very high, right? And this is one of the big reasons why we as analysts give Rogue a lot of praise, because remember, we were talking about like what the goals were, what the expectations were, and like a lot of what I've learned is from a lot of our experienced junglers that we have in the LEC, and the likes of Kold shows that same respect to Inspired, and he does a lot of what we expect him to do, and it feels like that he has such a good game sense and good awareness of what he needs to be doing, that his early game pathing and decision making is very, very strong. So I think he's had a fantastic debut to the split, and I'm excited to see what his future holds, because he's very reminiscent of what we saw from Xerxes when he started, and you now look at where Xerxes is today.
I think the only criticism of him may be his champion pool, with the Olaf being the main pick that works. But I think we saw a very similar thing with Xerxes as well, where he would bring out some very unique champions.
Zac and Rumble, he used to just be able to play.
I remember his
Warwick as well, yeah.
But, perhaps wasn't so comfortable on some of the meta. Inspired definitely up in the running for Rookie of the Split in a lot of people's estimations, up there with people like Dan, who've had some pretty impeccable performances. And early on in this game, he's been in the right place at the right time. Hasn't quite had the full impact that maybe he would have wanted, but now with the level 6, perhaps looking down towards the bottom lane. With Woolite backing away, I don't expect him to get too much out of it. And now perhaps the fight over the third Scuttle Crab of the game will begin.
So you can notice that there is a teleport available on Alphari and Finn. Alphari is just going to be walking back the lane, so while he will lose a bit of farm, he's going to be able to be in a position to TP back. The question is, will Finn choose to do the same, or will he TP back into lane? It looks like that he is just going to be walking back. So both top laners can join the fight in the event that a dragon is kicked off. Origen don't want to take the risk for now. Patrik wanted a base, reset, pick up some items. You can see that with the BF sword now completed, it gives him a lot of extra power in the early game. Does suggest that he might be looking for a Storm Razor early, rather than more of the AP itemization that we've been seeing a lot from Kaisers recently, perhaps to increase their damage portfolio so that they're not too heavy on the AP side.
And that's always the balancing act you have to strike when you're looking at itemization on Kaisa. Do we have enough AP? Do we need to add a little bit more magic damage into our composition? I do want to bring attention to Alphari's first item in the top lane as well. Something we're seeing a lot more top laners do when they play into things like Vlad and Aatrox is get this early Executioner's Calling, just to try and shut down some of the bonus healing that Aatrox gets, especially when he pops that World Ender.
So really upset that I can't get Avarice Blade out of my head as we see an engage in mid.
Nukeduck pushed back here, Vander coming in with the charm, but Nukeduck steals it away, and Nukeduck's going to do a lot of damage. Kold coming in, Larssen, great dodge away, just shuffled his way out of that one. able to escape the two-man squad.
So beautifully played from both sides. Props to Rogue for being in the position to be able to counter this. Vander there with a great use of the ultimate to separate Nukeduck and Kold away from each other. Inspired lying in wait in the wings, as we see just a bit of trading up towards the top side of the map.
Well, for the moment, it's just a bit of trading. Alphari will just trade ultimate for ultimate and force Finn underneath this tower. Now Origen with the impetus down towards this bottom side with the waves pushing in can go for the first dragon of the game, and it's a mountain.
Yeah, so the important thing to note here is that while that action is happening mid, Nukeduck wasn't forced back to base, so he's able to keep the mid state in a neutral position. Meanwhile, in the bot lane, Patrik and Mithy had already had the push, so by the time they rotate up, they're going to be at a disadvantage, so they choose not to go for it. And of course, Inspired's in the top side of the map, so Rogue can't really look to contest that Drake anyway. But what I thought was really cool in that play was the moment Nukeduck saw Vander, he actually chooses to steal away Vander's ultimate. So then the moment he gets charmed, he can also charm up Vander and actually then run through Larssen to get out of that situation. So quick thinking there coming out from Nukeduck, and just very quick response time in the immediate moment.
A few strong mechanical plays from both the mid laners to escape with their lives. We'll see if Nukeduck decides to use his teleport back into the lane here as it's about to come off cooldown. Larssen's already used his. Nukeduck holds onto his. Does give Origen that TP advantage, the ability to get more members in a fight quicker.
So, have a look at the minimap right now. You talked a little bit about TPs. Woolite does not have his available. Mithy is already roamed up towards topside alongside Vander.
Oh, Alphari going in, pulled back. Will use the Cold on meat to get some health back, and Mithy pops the ult, trying to catch out Finn. The dredge line will connect in the end. Vander coming in with the charm. First blood goes to Origen, but they're bounced in a bounce house, back and forth. Rogue take two.
And Larssen comes in from the flank, and he ends up turning this play around. What should have been a great collapse from the side of Origen gets flipped in their face up against the likes of Larssen and the combo alongside Qiyana, utilizing his wall to set up the stun from the Qiyana ultimate. Even though Woolite was not there to join the fray, Rogue walked away with the kills and the early gold advantage.
That's exactly how that came to pass, because you were talking about the TP advantages.
So yeah, look at the minimap right now. You can see that Kaisa's on her way. This is a 3 versus 2 initially, but then Origen overcommit. They think that the Kaisa's going to be there, and they know they have Sylas teleport. But by the time these things come through, the damage is already done. They get ulted underneath the tower. The Qiyana ultimate sets up the play as well, and Rogue find 2 kills.
Really cool micro interaction there. As you saw, the soldiers come out from the Emperor's Divide. The Qiyana ultimate hits that, then gets the stun lock on it. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yep, beautiful setup. Great use of the combo. Now we see Rogue with a slight gold advantage, but Rogue, they do not, Origen rather, do not want to slow down the pressure. They look for a dive bot.
Finn has his ult. Nukeduck's going to steal away the ult from the Qiyana. Finn trying to do what he can. That's a double knockup. Teleport coming in. Supreme Display of talent from Nukeduck will get one. Inspired doesn't have his own ult, but Woolite is here for the party. Kold forced away. Nukeduck running away from the rest of his team. Larsen's on his way down. Straight onto Kold. Locks him in place. He goes golden for a second. Inspired and Nukeduck fighting down towards the bottom side of Kold. Eventually will fall. Alphari tried to trade. Flashes away. Perfect positioning on that flash. Meanwhile, Rogue are putting 2 men in the mid lane.
Now Rogue commit their teleport from the AD carry to stop any further dives from happening and get a kill back of their own. Whereas Origen were investing their time into the mid lane to secure a few tower plates. I think they end up securing 2, so overall the net gain gold goes in the favor of Origen, even though it looked like Rogue had the advantage.
They may even get 3 here, because it's only Vander defending. Patrik just chips away at it. Inspired coming in, the death charge being used, but Inspired's going to get the knockup. Stun lock onto Patrik. There's a very squishy Kaisa. He jumps forward. Larssen here for the fight. Finn off towards the top side as Patrik flashes away. Mithy going to lock him up in place for the moment as Patrik just trying to dodge to the back of this, but the package comes in. Woolite can't quite land the long-range cannons, but he will get one. Larssen takes the kill. Finn still on the chase. Nukeduck trying to trade in, but here comes Kold. And Origen re-engage the fight, but they are shuffled to pieces. Triple kill to Woolite, make it 4. Rogue find a perfect fight.
And now all of a sudden, Rogue just obliterate Origen. That is an ace at 13 minutes and 50 seconds into the game. This was supposed to just start off with a dive towards the bot side of the map. Origen felt like they had them as advantage, they had pressure, they could look to make this play. The TP comes in from Woolite, and ultimately, even if this happens, Origen thinking this is fine. We ultimately gain more than we lose. And even though Larssen roams down, like you're thinking, okay, this is still fine for us. They then commit onto Vander. He utilizes his stopwatch to buy time. Patrik, with a good use of the ultimate, is able to find the kill, but now they realize they've overcommitted. Finn joins with the teleport. He gets a collapse and a good route down onto Mithy that starts the fight off. And even though Kold is lying in wait on the flank, it's Larssen you have to keep your eyes on. Look at how he uses the EQ combo, flashes in, gets a huge 3-man ultimate off to allow Nukeduck to be basically by himself. That then sets up Rogue for the cleanup. And Larssen has been performing spectacularly with the flank up towards the top side of the map, with the ultimate that we see towards there once again. Rogue now find themselves with a 1.8k gold lead.
You promised us team fights, Vedius. You said it would be around the 20 to 25 minute mark. Both these teams saying we can do it 5 minutes better than that. 15 minutes, we're already having full 5-on-5 brawls. Now, you can see just that slight gold lead for Rogue. They're about 1,600 gold ahead. They'll pick up the Rift Herald, and with the plates fallen, that will just be used to try and chip away at one of these towers. All towers still standing in this game. It's been much more about kills and trying to get pressure in your lanes than actually taking those towers so far. Origen will start up on the second Mountain Drake because they know Rogue, the Infernal Drake, because they know Rogue are on the top side of the map.
Yeah, but Rogue can collapse on this. Notice how Larssen is the one that gets to approach the wave first, and Inspired and Vander are already on their way down. This is going to go down relatively quickly. They're forced to disengage.
Kold lands the smite just in time. Can body slam away. Alphari with the slice and dice will get himself to safety as well.
Close.
It was very close to Vedius. Good call on the collapse, but Origen able just to sneak out with everything they wanted.
So what we're seeing here is that Rogue are spending a lot more time in this game collapsing and reacting to a lot of what Origen is doing. So while on paper it looks like Origen are just trading for something elsewhere on the map, it actually ends up backfiring more often than not, simply because Rogue are throwing all of their people at the problem. So every time Origen does something, Rogue is just like, all right, well, we'll send 4 people there instead of 3, which is what the usual expected thing to do. OG end up getting caught off guard, and then they end up faltering. And this has happened twice so far this game, which means that Rogue now find themselves with a bunch of kills. They're going to be hitting their spikes that much sooner, and this means that Origen have to wait a little bit more before they can scale and really look to fight.
And the big thing for Rogue as well is their kills have gone on their key carries. Azir sitting at 404, enemies not found, 303 on the Corki. It's so good for them because it means, as you say, those first items coming quicker. Trinity Force finish, Nash's Tooth finish, and it makes it very easy for Rogue to get towards these mid-game team fights in an advantage.
And we want to remind people at home, if Origen win this game, they lock in playoffs, and they also deny Rogue the opportunity to qualify for playoffs. But a Rogue win here makes everything way more complicated and very, very exciting. So if you want the end of the season to be tense, you're looking for Rogue to win.
It means Origen will be fighting for their lives against SK tomorrow. Alphari chasing out Finn, the execution is calling, helping him out quite a lot. But Rogue on the top side of the map looking for that tower. Rift Herald's being dropped. 17 minutes in, they're trying to open up the first tower of the game. It should go down pretty easily. Woolite just needs a couple more auto attacks. There it goes. Rogue strike first. 2,000 gold ahead. They will take first tower blood. Patrik and Mithy trying to just wait around the corner, but they were spotted out by Inspired and Vander. Inspired's had a very good game so far. Vander's been in the right position at the right time. More moments than not as well.
Yep, I like Inspired's game so far. Early game, he was tracked. He was... honestly, his early game impact was somewhat mitigated, but I think he's turned a lot of these fights around very well. Great utilization of his ultimate many times now to sit at a 105 scoreline, but involved 6 of the 8 kills. So now we kind of look at next steps for both these teams, and already you can see that Rogue are not interested in the top lane. They want to secure mid, because once you take that mid tower, you gain so much more access towards the enemy jungle, and Origen's wave clear is not the strongest. So they've abandoned top, they've moved all 4 members mid, while they keep Finn towards bot. Now, Finn does not have teleport, but because the package is available, it's very easy for Rogue to actually collapse towards the bot side of the map. But Origen want to try and take advantage of this. They're actually setting their sights on Finn, but Rogue have control of the river, and this is not going to be as easy as Origen thinks.
An issue for Alphari because he's used all of his tools to try and chase down Finn. Does still have the flash, Slice and Dice actually comes back up at the end of the fight, so he's able to get back underneath the tower, but Rogue were looking hungrily at this turret. Should be able to close it out. Origen trying to react. 4 members strong. Mithy's going to land the dredge line. Charm comes out as well. Teleport in behind them. Mithy almost falls, but now Rogue needs to be careful because here comes Nukeduck. Supreme display of talent misses everyone. Larssen shut down though. And now Finn trying to flash away for his life. There's a tower there for him if he can get back to it, but Origen might not be willing to let him get away. He escapes to live another day. And Rogue got caught out in the bottom lane.
Yes, they certainly did, Medic. OG are able to finally find a successful punish. Unfortunately for them, it only turns into a single kill, but it will at the very least relieve some of the pressure that Rogue has been putting down onto this Origen squad. And ooh, Finn. He hangs around. He knows that he's in the 1v1. So Origen aren't even able to secure this bot tower. Well, they did lose the one in mid. Now, Woolite did have teleport, but again, Rogue made the decision to not commit to the fight and actually trade for the objective. And this is contrary to what they've been doing for the majority of this game, but I think it was the correct decision this time around. Securing that mid tower, as we said, gives you so much access into the enemy jungle and allows you to set up for future plays. So we're going to have an opportunity to look back at this. You can see that they commit quite hard to the tower. Great hook lands from Mithy, and a disengage immediately comes out from the likes of Inspire, but the damage is already done onto the support. This makes it easy for Nukeduck to come in from behind, then Rogue ends up separated. 2 versus 5, very easy for Origen to end up finding the win.
And as soon as Larssen goes down, you lose all of your damage in that fight. Woolite not there, he's the other Fed member on the side of Rogue, makes it very hard for them to ever try and fight back from that position. Origen setting up towards the top lane tower at the 20-minute mark. It's Patrik who is chipping away at it. Bot lane tower falls in favor of Rogue, but that top lane will go down in favor of Origen. It's just traded across the map. Still that 1,000 gold lead for Rogue, and an Infinity Edge now complete on Woolite. He is a very strong Corki. Those 2 items give him an incredible amount of power.
Spear of Sojin also finished for Alphari. Will help a lot in terms of his 1 versus 1. As you rightly said, Infinity Edge plus Training Force. That's a scary Corki. Ooh, sneaky play coming out from Origen. I don't think he's tanky enough to do this. Pings are coming out, though, from Rogue. They have some spidey senses. Alphari, is he going to teleport in? Kold needs to get out.
Vander has the quickness. Just looking for the engage. Only catches out Mithy. Supreme Display of Talent will lock him up as well. Maybe Rogue turns straight towards the Baron. It's down half. Alphari has the teleport. He needs to join this fight. Rogue disengage. Decide they don't want it. They get the teleport out even after disengaging as well.
And look at the state of the map, though. Rogue had the push in mid, which means that Origen can't trade this priority for the mid-tier 1. Instead, they're going to set their eyes on the Drake. They're going to sacrifice the farm. They took a gamble there. They wanted to see if they could sneak away the Baron. Relatively quick clear with the likes of a Kaisa having completed 2 items already. But they got spotted out. Rogue had good awareness to realize that the Baron was being started off, and they end up securing it. Now Rogue still have priority over mid, though. They TP in, will not be able to contest the Drake.
Another Dragon going across towards Origen, but Rogue are looking for that mid lane push. With an Azir and a Corki, you shred through towers incredibly fast. Now get it down to about 3/4 HP before Origen are able to react. As we have a brief momentary pause, I do just want to remind people of how much of a transformation this Rogue squad has gone through since spring. They got 2 wins in spring. They struggled intensely to actually challenge any team in the league, and then bringing in their Ultra Liga roster, bringing up Finn and Inspired and Larssen and Woolite and Vander, and actually showing how effective they can be as a squad has been a joy to watch this split. They look like a playoff contender. They are a playoff contender, and if they win here against Origen, I think you would be brave to bet against them making it into that 6th spot.
All right, so, Medic, given that we have this opportunity, given that the Baron is alive, I want to talk a little bit about Baron's setup. So we're going to swap over to the bird's eye view, and you will notice that a lot of Rogue is resetting right now. But in this period of time, what you'll see as Rogue is setting up for the Baron is they'll have Rogue constantly, they'll have their Finn push up towards the bot side of the map. He's going to keep threatening that side. Meanwhile, the rest of them will keep pushing up mid, because by getting mid prio, it gives you access into the river. And what you'll already see is that a lot of this vision is already in their control. So the next steps for them is to push in mid and then threaten inside the enemy jungle. Make deeper vision so that you can zone the enemy away from this objective and like starve them out. And then it forces the opposition into an awkward situation where they don't know what's going on in their own half of the jungle. If they can't see, then they're forced into a spot where Rogue is either securing the Baron or can look for a pick. So over the next few minutes, keep an eye on how Rogue manipulate their waves in order to set up this vision.
You can see Origen realize that's the next steps for Rogue as well. They've set up control wards in their own jungle. They're the ones now trying to get that mid priority and push up towards the river so they can regain some of that vision control.
Exactly, Medic. What Origen are doing is they're forcing mid priority by using numbers. Because as we saw, Woolite was the only man in mid lane. So what Origen do, they send all 5 members mid. Yes, they lose control over bot wave and top, but at the very least it gives them a brief reprieve as they move into the river and get to clear out some of the vision. But unfortunately, it was not enough. You can see now a huge wave building up towards the bot side of the map, while OG try to answer in top, but they've now conceded mid a priority entirely, which gives Rogue complete access onto this tier 2 in the mid lane.
Get some damage down on that tower. Rogue have run out of control wards for the moment, so they need to go and restock, reset, before they can really regain total vision control, because you need those control wards to try and help out. Finn walks across a ward, decides he doesn't want to clear it out, and just backs away.
But the whole thing about this is it may look like nothing has happened, right? It's just been a trade of lanes. But the biggest thing to note is how much experience was just lost as 2 waves crashed into that bot lane tower. Like, that might not seem like a big deal, but if you let those waves stack up, it's a lot of gold, it's a lot of kills, a lot of experience, rather, that ultimately culminates into a difference between these laners. And when you come into these fights, having that fully completed item versus a half-completed one, it makes a difference. And Rogue, by doing this over and over again, will only continue to extend their gold lead.
Every wave equating to, say, 1/5 of a level as we get through the game. It all adds up, and those levels give you such a huge advantage, especially when you're looking towards level 16 on Larssen, that tier 3 ultimate. Finn working his way up there as well. Nukeduck, Alphari just that little bit behind across the board. Now Finn's going to pop the World Ender here. Nukeduck pushing forward. Tower goes down in the mid lane as Larssen takes it. Looks like Kold might be actually on the Baron, just actually clearing out vision, but Inspired jumps forward and Patrik goes down. Inspired finds his moment, picks his man, and takes him out.
Beautiful pick coming out from Inspired. Flash E-ult to find the instant execute and the immediate follow-up from Vander as well. Ooh, Larssen.
Oh, Nukeduck's overstepped. Nothing you can do about that. Should have stepped back. And now Rogue open up the base. Origen cannot stand in their way. Rogue may even be looking for the win.
Whoa, no way. I mean, both mid laner and AD carry are gone from the side of Origen. The TP's coming through. They're going for it.
Rogue fighting for their playoff lives. A loss today would have knocked them out, and Alphari's going to jump in. The Baron's going to knock them back. The minion wave has been cleared out, and Rogue will accept defeat for the time being. They back away. They say, without minions, we cannot push any further, but they have entirely broken the base of Origen.
Oh, man. I mean, Rogue just... like, what we saw was great manipulation of how they managed the waves, particularly mid and bot, right? And then they used this opportunity where Origen felt like they had control over the top side of the map to find a very quick pick onto Patrik. Patrik thinks he's safe in this situation, but he walks past that ward that is sitting inside the Raptor pit. Notice, like, he has pressure topside, he also has people in the river, but he doesn't have control over mid, and that is what allows Rogue to find this collapse. And then Nukeduck, he's just overextended underneath the tower, simple as that, and Larssen finds the punish.
And now Rogue, using those super minions in the mid wave, will have that way pushing into the Origen base more often than not. They can use that to get that vision control you were talking about, to get those deep wards in, and then look to set up towards this Baron if they so desire.
I mean, Origen are crumbling right now. Like, the early game plays, some of the overextensions that we saw, the punishes coming out from Rogue. This is not the Origen that we even saw a few weeks ago in the LEC. The last time that these two teams met, Rogue was able to find the upper hand, and now it feels like the Rogue just have the answers once more. They are shutting down Origen, and Origen are in a real risk of losing that playoff spot. Like, people thought that it would be easy for them. People thought that Origen would just get a 2-0 this weekend, but if they lose to Rogue, remember, SK is better and better. With the introduction of Genax, that team has only been improving, and that's their next opposition tomorrow. I don't think anyone can say with confidence the Origen are the favorites going into that matchup. It is going to be just as close as the one is today, and I say it's close. Right now, Rogue are just stomping over Origen.
Rogue look dominant. Want to remind people, if Origen lose both their games, there is no way they make it into playoffs. They need at least one win this weekend to secure that playoff spot, or to fight for that playoff spot. Rogue here looking to show that they are that playoff team. They are the team that has grown and developed across the course of the split. Using that mid-prio, getting the deep vision, going back towards the Baron, trying to pull Origen into a fight they are not ready for.
So you can see how much vision control Rogue now have, and if we swap over to Origen's vision, that's the thing that's most important. They've been able to get a couple of wards in. Not deep enough to see what's going on in the Baron, but walking into this fog is very dangerous for them. And I like that they found these small pockets, so at the very least they can see a bit of their own half of the jungle. But I will say I feel that Rogue are not being hyper-aggressive with their vision usage. They're getting very deep vision, but then they're almost immediately disengaging. It's like they're always looking for picks rather than running the risk of starting the Baron. And I think a large part of that is because they don't have a frontline tank. They need Finn there at the very least to soak that up, and they want to keep him off on a side lane and threatening. As I say that, he's now grouping up with the team because of course he doesn't have the teleport. So maybe now they'll actually look to try and force it because they do have that front line with them. Likely wait for the Corki to push out top. And then I feel like they can force it. I feel like they're so much stronger than Origen is right now that they don't need to be so afraid of actually starting this objective off.
Woolite's going to clear out the control ward in the pit and remove any last vestige of vision from Origen. They now have nothing in that river. Larssen get the mid lane prio with Finn here. They're pushing in. Actually, Ping's just coming out on the Nexus tower. Maybe Rogue looking for the final push here.
It's a little risky, though. Just trying to run it down mid. I don't think this is the most reliable method of ending games.
You can use the fact that Origen have to react to the mid wave to then chip away at this top lane tower, get yourself a little bit more gold. They are 3,000, almost 4,000 gold ahead. Patrik, Kold, and Mithy trying to react here, but Inspired will catch out Alphari. Not really the target that you want. That tower chipped away at. Sundisk falls in the mid lane, and Rogue now playing in the jungle of Origen, trying to control as much as they can. A lot of damage coming out there from Nukeduck, but not enough yet from Origen to find that avenue into this game once again.
Thing is, I feel like Rogue is just giving Origen a lot of time. Now, admittedly, Rogue do have a strong scaling comp. They have Corki, they have Azir, and I think that the Qiyana is also very strong in the late game as well, but it's not like Origen is slouches. You still have Kaisa, you still have Sylas, who can be deadly in the late game, and Renekton definitely falls off, but I don't think they need to be as safe as they currently are being. But at the end of the day, if the net's in a win, who am I to complain?
Mithy flashes away.
Okay, so Origen, you can sense that they feel the pressure right now. So the Baron now finally being started off. This is what we wanted to see. Force Origen into that awkward situation like you've already been able to do.
They backed off it though. Now they restart it. Finn is the one tanking it up. Inspired, looking for that ultimate, trying to catch out Origen in their jungle. Nukeduck going in.
You can see Origen have very easy access to the back of the Baron pit though. Finn is losing all of his life, and the indecision from Rogue doesn't really result in anything. The mid inhibitor is now respawned. Rogue have their eyes set on that. Origen going to try and respond to get there in time before it falls.
It feels a little bit like nerves. It feels a little bit like Rogue know how important this game is for them, and so they're not quite pulling the trigger on perhaps a play they would have done in the middle of the split. Of course, we can't be in the minds of the players, so we don't know that's exactly what's going on. But when you get down to these tense final games, when you get down to games that define your playoff hopes, and all of it is on the line, it becomes so much harder to make those split-second decisions.
I mean, so the problem for Rogue right now is that they don't stop Origen from approaching the Baron at all. And they've spent so much time around mid and top net that they're now the ones, as Mithy gets caught.
Mithy caught out, no flash on him, the three-man charm on the back line, and that's what Rogue were looking for. Finn takes down Patrik, and that is exactly the moment the Rogue look to secure their playoff hopes. Origen crumble, they fall to pieces, not a man left standing as Rogue get the ace.
So Rogue eventually find the pick. They don't need the Baron. That is the team fight that should put the nail in the coffin against Origen in this game. All 5 members are dead. They have a minion wave right behind them. Rogue looking to find the 2-0 this split over Origen.
And they finally did what you wanted them to do, Vedius. They stopped Origen from being able to approach the Baron. They found the pick, and from last place in spring, Rogue continue to prove they belong in playoffs.
They were a little hesitant, they were a little slow and steady, but you know what? Who am I to complain? Rogue end up finding the big win. They punish Mithy for his second overstep as he's just trying to get some vision in the river, and they punish him effectively. It ends up being a huge teamfight win off the back of what was a marvelous engage from Vander. 3-man taunt into 3-man knockup, the Qiyana ult follow-up as well. I felt like both Vander and Inspired were working in tandem throughout this game. And Rogue find themselves a huge win against Origen.
Origen's life no longer in their own hands now. They rely on Vitality or Rogue losing tomorrow to make sure they lock in their playoff spots.
Wait, but don't Origen need to get the win against SK as well?
Yes.
Because if they're tied in the standings against Rogue, Rogue of course have the head-to-head record.
So they need to win, and then they need Vitality or Rogue to lose tomorrow for them to lock it in.
Yes.
And as you say, SK looking stronger and stronger week by week, day by day. It's going to be a very hard match for Origen to be sure. Rogue, on the other hand, licking their lips greedily, looking at that playoff spot. They play Fnatic tomorrow, which is not going to be an easy game at all.
But they won the last time.
They won the last time, but Fnatic now are playing for that second space still. They need to win that game to assure themselves of second, assuming Splice win earlier in the day. For now, though, let's focus a little bit more on this game and some of the players that stood out. Key player of the game is available at lolesports on Twitter. Inspired, and Vander is what my copy says. It's going to be Larssen as the other choice. Inspired played really well. Maybe we should put him on the list twice.
Yeah, I think that he, alongside Vander, both had a great game. Like, Larssen also had a lot of moments. Honestly, the teamwork was great. Again, my biggest criticism was I felt like they could have been a little bit faster. They left quite a lot of time and opportunity for Origen to potentially come back into the game.
True.
But Origen never found that opportunity, and in the end, Rogue did choke them out and result in a big, big win. And you can't help but feel concerned for Origen right now. They're definitely in a dire situation, and they only have one last game to potentially turn their season around.
I think you have to feel very happy for Rogue as well. The improvement they've made across the split, the improvement they've made from spring to summer is exemplary, and I, for one, hope to continue to see them in their playoff run. But for more on Rogue's win, let's head on over to the analyst desk.
Thank you so much, Medic. I don't know what he was laughing about. I didn't get it. Someone tweeted at me. Anyway, Rogue beats Origen. I did predict it, but I
gotta
honestly,
slide that one in there.
Yeah, just sliding it in there. But honestly, what a disaster for Origen, and what a monumental win once again for Rogue. I want to start off by taking a look at some of the earliest kills we saw, which was not very early in the game. These two teams generally don't like to juke it out from minute 1, but there was more action than I would have expected relatively early on in the game, Kedro.
Well, this replay here is a bit later in the game when Sylas didn't have flash, but I mean, I think Rogue's comp is a scaling comp, right? So you don't really want to overforce much things early. Qiyana doesn't really have that much CC. You don't have a huge amount of setup on lanes. You kind of just want to weather the storm for the first 10 minutes because they picked a Gragas Nautilus, which wants to roam around the map, wants to look for these kills, maybe get an early Drake. But I think Rogue did really, really well. They answered every single play. They were always first on the move. Like here, Origen are overforcing topside because they have really big spikes on their jungle support top. But yeah, Rogue answered really well.
So looking at this matchup, if you're saying Qiyana wants to get through the initial clear, get access into whatever smite she's going to take, and then she becomes a much more skirmish heavy, do you think that there was a missed opportunity for Kold that on a pick like Gragas, that he wasn't more proactive in that window where Qiyana's trying to scale up into early skirmishes?
Yeah, well, the thing is with jungle, you want to definitely punish the Qiyana early, but I think the difficulty they had was they picked the Sylas into Azir, where Azir gets priority most of the game. And you could see around level 4 or 5, Kold and Mithy went together to try and contest the mid-prio, but Rogue answered that as well. They didn't give them any inch to take mid-prio anywhere, so it's pretty hard for Kold to walk in and punish it. I mean, he does have good setup on sides early, but if you can't get the mid-prio and TPs aren't down, then it's pretty hard to force on sides.
Would you say that then that's risky taking the Sylas into a Azir matchup? Because if you don't get that gank off, then it pretty much neutralizes any sort of jungle advantage that you might have, and then Qiyana's just going to kind of be more worthwhile than Gragas is?
I suppose so. I think the good thing is if you can get the playoff, then you can definitely start forcing on the Azir. Once the Nautilus Gragas get the prio on the river and they get deep vision on the bot side or top side, whichever side you're playing for, Azir kind of has to play under his turret. And if Azir's under his turret, he's pretty much useless. And then that opens up huge advantages on the side lanes.
But what you bring up there is also a great point and exactly translated into the game, because OG knew that they had to pressure that mid lane, but Azir, even under his turret, was incredibly strong in turning everything around. And I think Rogue also showed a lot of good reactive plays where they didn't let them be caught out by OG in this mid lane push.
And I love one of the points that you brought up, Kadril, was this idea that it makes Origen really telegraphed. And that makes Rogue really capable of reading them and constantly being there at the right time to start snowballing. And then suddenly you have Woolite, who has all of this gold. Suddenly you have Larssen, who has all of this gold. And you have a Corki and Azir, who are super fed at like 15 minutes in this game. And then the scaling advantage is there for the composition.
Yeah, I think Rogue really picked their moments really well. They made sure that they had good bases, good items, make sure they're ready for the fight, got wards ready, just in case something went down. And they made sure that if they did get the right fight or something, that they couldn't translate it into anything. So they made sure to answer the correct plays, and they chose the really smart times, I think.
Which is, you know, really interesting and I think impressive show of skill from a team like Rogue, right? They are definitely developing under our eyes, especially also in this game. And I did want to take a look at the mid game and then the compositions of both teams and where they are in the mid game. Rogue has an advantage. It's big, but it's not completely out of control. And if you look at Origen and the team and the experience that team has, they should be able to fight back in the game with this composition. What would you say their plan should have been in the mid game?
Yeah, well, looking at both comps, you see Azir Corki on one side. That's a 2-3 item spike. And then you see Kaisa, Nautilus, Gragas on one other side. So it's kind of telegraphed what both teams want to do. One team wants to scale. Qiyana jungle is not super strong early. It needs that level 6, needs the warrior enchantment. Aatrox into Renekton is just a kind of a bloodbath a bit in the top lane. We don't want to make sure that's safe. So, I mean, Rogue definitely wants to look to defend every play possible and give up as little as possible while keeping good vision in river. Whereas Origen just wants to force on sides, force mid-prio, get these fights going, Nautilus ult onto whoever they can, get the Gragas in there. And
I hear a lot of force and over-force for Origen. Is that what you guys identify as kind of the biggest problem so far?
I mean, time and time again, like looking at Origen's problems, it's really hard to diagnose the team because it feels like I don't know what the communication is within the team, but that's how I look at it. When we were VOD watching Origen preparing for this week, you would see so many times that Mithy and Kold were like desynced and not moving together. This time around, they were moving together, but as Kadril's saying, it was in super obvious ways that it's like, okay, the mid priority didn't go. Let's try to a side lane. Okay, Vander's also here. And every single time, Origen is throwing a play, Rogue is catching it, and then running it back with a composition that once it gets ahead, it's going to stay ahead.
And I think with jungle support, timing your bases correctly is really important. Or you can see all the top teams in the world do this. I think they definitely nailed that step. But the problem is the next step. Do you want to go for vision? Do you want to relieve a lane? Do you want to look to pressure out the lane or force on a wave? I think what they did most of the time was just contest mid-wave. They didn't really set up huge amounts of vision. It was like one pink in river here, not much deep vision. They didn't really find the jungle. Tried to look for a pick on mid, but didn't really work out. So, I mean, they got the first step of getting together, but they just need to get the next step.
And Kadril also brought up a great point of that when you watch Origen in lane phase, everything looks fine. It's as soon as you get out of lane phase that really things start falling apart. And it seems so foreign to us because you see veteran players like Kold, like Mithy, that this team should be really good at macro understanding of the choices that they're making about where they're attacking on the map at win. But frankly, that's kind of been the undoing of Origen. And until that cleans up, like, you know that they have the star players capable to snap everything back in position, but until that happens, they're just going to fall apart.
Phenomenal point. They do it all by the book, and they wanted to learn step by step even in spring. But now when they can't make the right decision in their minds, they go to over-forcing, and it kind of all falls apart after the things that they can predict, it seems like, in-game. And what they couldn't predict, or maybe should have done, is that Azir, Corki, Qiyana, they are all going to one-shot you when the late game comes around. And I think good on Rogue for then taking these windows also in the late game, Kadril, and just closing this game out.
Yeah, they played over vision really well here. They were really smart around when to fight and where to fight. You can see Vander gets a really good engage here because Origen has to walk into them. And I think that's a huge key when you can set up these comps, these long-range comps against kind of Gragas, Nautilus, these short-range engages, where if you have the vision control and they are face-checking into you, then you can choose the fight. And if you can choose the fight, then you will probably always win it.
Okay, if you were Origen on red side and you were looking across at a blue side team that had Azir, Corki, and Qiyana, like, do you feel that there's a draft that you acceptably got on red side, or do you feel that too many weapons got through?
Well, I think Rogue, it's kind of known that they're going to flex the Corki, right? So when they first pick the Corki, picking a solo lane is kind of hard. I mean, the Corki Azir, it's strong in a sense, but if you can punish it early, it's going to be really useless. So, I mean, they really did try to overforce, but they didn't get the moments right. But like you said earlier, I think Origen's laning phase is really strong. It's just the coming together of the team is just not there yet.
Wow, and with all of that, the Kia player of the game, Larssen, with 48% of the votes. I'm liking the development of this guy, of course. We were very, very impressed early on. We were super hyped. We kept talking about him. But he seems to be, I would say, be more important rather for the team as the season goes on. He seems to be more and more comfortable every day on the stage.
The thing that I really like about Larssen, it's hard to get hyped about the guy because he doesn't have the same flashiness like someone like Leader is going to bring into a lineup, but his awareness of a map, you don't normally see that in a player who's just walking into the LEC for the first time. And I think it's that map awareness and the fact that he doesn't just play for his lane, that he's playing for the entire map, that puts Larssen ahead of some of the other rookies that have come into the mid lane position.
Yeah, and Larssen's a player I played with last year on H2K and even in a team before that in Ninjas in Pajamas before. I think he's not the pop-off player like you said, but he gets the job done and he gets it done really well. Like, he will always respect the enemy jungler, he's always keeping up his communication on waves, and he's always answering the plays that he needs to.
And he might just bring Rogue to the playoffs. And Origen, they might not make it. They're playing SK tomorrow, and now all is left to be played for. Things are in absolute disarray here, and we've got one more game coming up next. We'll also get a playoffs checkup from QuickShot before G2 eSports take on Schalke 04. Don't go anywhere.